So you have a Shabbat service next week, right? Oh, shoot, we live. Okay. We there. Praise
All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
All praise to the Most High. B'Hashem Yeshaya Wapadash. This is the grand opening of the first upstate church in Oneida, New York. Let's please rise and let's face our homeland.
Which way?
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
B'Hashem Yeshaya.
B'Hashem Yeshaya.
Wapadash.
Wapadash.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
B'Hashem Yeshaya.
B'Hashem Yeshaya.
Wapadash.
Wapadash.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
B'Hashem Yeshaya.
B'Hashem Yeshaya.
Wapadash.
Wapadash.
Our Father.
Our Father.
Who art in heaven.
Who art in heaven.
Hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be done.
In earth. As it is in heaven.
As it is in heaven.
Give us this day.
Give us this day.
Our daily bread.
Our daily bread.
Give us this day.
Give us this day.
Our daily bread.
Our daily bread.
Forgive us our debts.
And forgive us our debts.
As we forgive our debtors.
As we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not.
And lead us not
into temptation.
into temptation.
But deliver us.
But deliver us
from all evil.
from all evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
For thine is the kingdom.
The power. And the glory. Forever.
And
ever.
Amen.
Amen. Shema. Sha'ala.
Yasha'Allah.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Alahayana.
Ahaya.
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 Shema. Sha'ala.
Yasha'Allah.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Alahayana.
Ahaya.
Ahaya. Hear, O Israel.
Hear, O Israel.
The Lord our God.
The Lord our God.
One Lord.
Is one Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
So let's rise again. Let's stay standing. We're going to read the commandments. And I'll have Brother Eric come up and read the commandments.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Brother Eric. Benjamin. I'm just happy to be here for this grand opening. So we're going to be starting at Exodus 20. And the Most High spake all these words, saying,
And the Most High spake all these words, saying,
I am the Lord thy God,
I am the Lord thy God,
which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt,
which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt,
out of the house of bondage.
out of the house of bondage.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image,
Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image,
or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above,
or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above,
or that is in the earth beneath,
or that is in the earth beneath,
or that is in the water under the earth.
or that is in the water under the earth.
Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them,
Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them,
nor serve them.
nor serve them.
For I, the Lord thy God, am a
For
jealous God,
For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God,
visiting the iniquity of the fathers
visiting the iniquity of the fathers
upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me,
unto the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me,
and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me,
and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me,
and keep my commandments.
and keep my commandments.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain.
For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
Remember the Sabbath day,
Remember the Sabbath day,
to keep it holy.
to keep it holy.
6 days shalt thou labor,
6 days shalt thou labor,
and do all thy work.
and do all thy work.
But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
In it
In it
thou shalt not do any work.
thou shalt not do any work.
But thou,
Thou,
nor thy son,
nor thy son,
nor thy daughter,
nor thy daughter,
thy manservant,
nor thy manservant,
nor thy maidservant,
nor thy
nor
maidservant,
thy cattle,
nor thy cattle,
nor thy stranger that is within thy gates.
nor thy stranger that is within thy gates.
For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth,
For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth,
the sea, and all that in them is,
and all that in them is,
and rested the seventh day.
and rested the seventh day.
Wherefore the Most High blessed the Sabbath day,
Wherefore the Most High blessed the Sabbath day,
and hallowed it.
and hallowed it.
Honor thy father
Honor thy father
and thy mother,
and thy mother,
that thy days may be long upon the land,
that thy days may be long upon the land,
which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Thou shalt not steal.
Thou shalt not steal.
Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife,
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife,
nor his manservant,
nor his manservant,
nor his maidservant,
nor his maidservant,
nor his ox,
nor his ox,
nor his donkey,
nor his donkey,
nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Amen.
Amen.
So keeping in line with our forefathers, we're going to have every able-bodied brother come up and read 7 verses out of the law. And we're going to start, being that we're in a new place, new building, we're going to start right at the beginning. So we're going to start in Genesis 1:1. Shalom. Brother Sean, tribe of Judah, picking up at Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, the Most High created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of the Most High moved upon the face of the waters. And the Most High said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And the Most High saw the light, that it was good. And the Most High divided the light from the darkness. And the Most High called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning was the first day. And the Most High said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And the Most High made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Brother Eric, tribe of Benjamin, picking up about Genesis chapter 1, verse 8. And the Most High called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning was the second day. And the Most High said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let dry land appear." And it was so. And the Most High called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And the Most High saw that was good. And the Most High said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And the Most High saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning was the third day. And the Most High said, "Let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth." And it was so. Amen.
Amen.
Brother Casey, Nation of Israel, tribe of Benjamin, picking up in Genesis chapter 1, verse 16. And the Most High made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and the Most High set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And the Most High saw that it was good. Verse 19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And the Most High said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Verse 21. And the Most High created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And the Most High saw that it was good. Verse 22 and last. And the Most High blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth.
Come on, Mama.
Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters.
Shabbat Shalom.
Picking up in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 24. 23. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And the Most High said, let the earth bring forth a living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And the Most High Ahia made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And the Most High saw that it was good. And the Most High said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So the Most High created man in his own image. In the image of the Most High created he him. Male and female created he them. And the Most High blessed them. And Ahia said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And the Most High said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. Verse 30 and last. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
My name is Brother Chris, or Karash, whichever you prefer. Tribe of Judah, Nation of Israel. Just want to say all praises to the Most High for making it through the week. And it's just a blessing to be here, the grand opening of everything. You know?
All praise.
So all praises to the Most High for that.
Come.
Picking up at Genesis chapter 1, verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heaven and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. Verse 2. And on the seventh day Ahia ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Ahia blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which the Elohim created and made. Verse 4. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Most High Power made the earth and the heavens. Verse 5. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb or herb of the field before it grew. For the Most High Power had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. Verse 6 at last. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
This is Brother God, upstate New York, from the tribe of Judah, starting at Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. And the Most High Power formed man in the dust of the ground, and breath into his nostrils, the breath of life. And man became a living soul. And the Most High Power planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Most High power to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good, tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the sacred river in Gihon, and the same is that compassed the whole land of Ethiopia. Is there one more? 14 and last. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is which goeth toward the east of Syria, and the fourth river is Euphrates.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm Octacat from Ithaca, either the tribe of Judah or Gad. It's a little confusing with this. So we're at Genesis 1 and 15. And the Most High Power took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Most High Power commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. And the Most High Power said, it is not good for the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him. And out of the ground the Most High God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him. And I and the Most High Power caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. Verse 21. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof.
Come on.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Brother Edward Yehu. Genesis chapter 1, verse 22. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast. Chapter 3, Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God made. And he said unto the woman, yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden, trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die.
Come on.
Shalom, brothers and sisters.
Shalom.
My name is Brother Aaron from Syracuse, tribe of Judah. I'm starting off Genesis chapter 3, verse 4. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For the Most High doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of this fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of the Most High Yah, walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord Yah amongst the trees of the garden. And the Most High called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard the voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself.
Come on.
Shalom, I'm Hassan from Syracuse.
Shalom. Shalom. Not shalom.
Read verse 11. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree, whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And the Elohim said unto the woman, What is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And the Elohim said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon the belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception and sorrow, though thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, Because you hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, and sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life.
Come on.
Thank you, brothers, for the reading.
All right.
You ready to get the Shabbat started?
Aye.
You know we can't get it started without a worship, right?
That's right.
We got to be on one mind, one spirit, one accord. So let's all rise and let's sing along with this song that's about to come on. All right?
We have come into this house.
Remember why we're here, brothers and sisters.
Gathered in His name to worship Him.
Let's remember that
We have come into this house.
Yes.
Gathered in His name to worship Christ our Lord.
Oh,
Worship Him, Christ
hallelujah.
our Lord.
Say it one more time. We've come into this house.
We have come into this house.
Gathered in His name.
Gathered in His name
To worship Him.
to worship Him.
Is that why you come this morning? Come on, say it.
We have
Let's thank Him for allowing us to get here in one piece. Thank Him for that breath that He gave you to get up this morning with.
About yourself this morning.
See, it's not about us in this world.
Concentrate on
Because there's a work that still needs to be done in this earth.
and worship Him.
A lot of ourselves, we should put ourselves in the midst like it has something to do with us. We're prideful, we're puffed up. Forget about yourself. Concentrate on the one that brought you from that darkness and showed you that light. And understand that with that light comes a purpose.
So forget about
So forget about yourself.
Concentrate on Him and worship Christ our Lord. Worship Him.
Christ, come on, Christ.
Christ our Lord.
Let us lift up holy hands.
Let us lift up holy hands.
Keep going.
Concentrate on Him and worship Him.
Yes, come on, guys.
Let us lift up holy hands.
Come on, y'all.
Concentrate on Him and worship Him.
So let's lift up holy hands.
Let us lift up holy
Lift those hands up to the
hands.
heavens, y'all.
Concentrate on Him and worship Christ our Lord.
Come on and worship Him.
Worship Him, Christ our Lord.
One more time, worship Him.
Come into this house, gathered in His name to worship Him. We have come into this house, gathered in His name to worship
I
Him.
want you to think about somebody that's suffering in this world right now.
We have come
And think about ways that you
into
can bring
this
them into this
house,
Think
gathered
about ways
in
you can
His
say something to them just to give them
name
some type of
to
healing, some type of
worship
comfort.
Christ our Lord.
Because this is what we're here for. We are to be the light of the world.
Worship Him, Christ our Lord.
Oh, praise, oh, praise, oh, praise. Work on getting a choir. That's my New York roots. I see a couple choir members in here. I didn't want to push you on blast. We'll get it. So, first and foremost, all honor, glory, and praise goes to the Most High. Ahaya Bahashini Shai Wakata. So the lesson I'm going to go into today is I'm going to deal with excuses. Right? Excuses. Because, just to be honest, we make a lot of excuses for ourselves, for our actions, for how we carry ourselves, for what we do in our day-to-day. We make a lot of excuses as if we lost sight of what's really important. Right? It says, if you find your life, you will lose it. But if you lose your life, you will find it. Right? So what does that mean? What does that mean? What are we seeking in this truth? What are we looking to gain, or what are we looking to obtain in this truth? Are we looking to obtain something for our own, for our own vanity, for our own glory? Or are we looking to do a particular work as commanded from the Father, from Christ? All right? So you tend to ask yourselves, why are we so puffed up? Why are we so puffed up in the truth? Because you tend to get that sometimes being in this truth. The truth will puff you up. As if you didn't know that you came from darkness yourself. Right? You now start acting as if that you're holier than thou, being that you wasn't doing the same thing a couple years ago. So what is the truth? Because there's a lot of truths. Being an Israelite is a truth. Right? Being of a particular lineage is a truth. Right? But if you don't have that love, then, matter of fact, let's get that. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Start at verse 1, brother.
This is the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, verse 1. Though I speak with tongues of men and of angels, and have not charity, I am become as sound tinkling brass.
So though you speak as, say that again.
I am become as sounding brass.
Start from the very top.
Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and have not charity, I am become as sounding brass of a tinkling cymbal.
You can get messages straight from the Father and from the angels. But if you have not charity, if you have not love, you sound like tinkling brass. Right? Go ahead.
And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing.
So you can move mountains, right? You can tell that mountain to get up and move, like Christ said. And brothers be like, yo, look at that mountain. It looks just fluid, relocated into the Pacific Ocean. But if you don't have charity, you have nothing, right? It's just parlor tricks, right? Come on.
Though I have bestowed all my goods to feed the poor, and though I gave my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profited me nothing.
So though you're sacrificing on a daily basis, thinking that you're doing this work, if you don't have that love in your heart, then it's not profiting you anything. Because you're just doing it out of vanity. You're just doing it because it's written here that it should be done. But what is the spirit? Because you can't follow the law carnally. You have to follow the law spiritually. So if you're not doing these things out of that charity, out of that sincerity, then it's not profiting you anything. Right? Come on.
Verse 4. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Verse 5.
Right? Charity suffereth long. Love suffereth long. Right? That means we're going to have to put up with certain things that we don't want to have to put up with. Because it's not about ourselves anymore. That's why we have to take, our lives is over. The life that we had, we can no longer live. We've been given a reprieve. You've been shown something that some people are still in darkness and cannot see. So with that comes a certain responsibility. So once you'll be able to see, you can't go back to that same vomit that you was eating before. You have to now act in a certain manner, right? Because you've been given a certain chance. You've been given a second one. Right? Come on.
Verse 5. Doth not behave itself unseemly. Seeketh not her own. Is not easily provoked. Thinketh no evil. Verse 6.
Right? Because we're talking about getting offended day and day. Right? Because we feel that we're in a certain stature now. So we feel like we can't break something down to a brother that's in darkness. We feel as if we're on a certain plateau now because We can't talk to this brother sinning. You look at Christ. Who was Christ hanging out with? Who did Christ come for? For the sinners. He wasn't sitting around people that got it. He went straight to the sinners, right? Why? Because they needed help. They needed healing. So what if Christ had that same attitude, like, okay, this brother over here sinning, man, I can't, you know what I mean? I'm gonna do nothing with this brother. He ain't gonna learn. He ain't gonna learn this lesson. We have to take whatever prideful or puffed up feeling we have in ourselves, we have to move that to the side, because we won't be able to do the work that's put forth in front of us. Because that work is important. But if you have an evil eye towards your brother or your sister that's in the truth, how then are you going to do to the people that's outside of the truth? How then are you going to be that light if you're living in darkness? How can a man who say he hates his brother, that see him every day, can say that he loves the Most High, who he's never seen? Continue.
Verse 6. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in truth. Verse 7. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things.
Endureth all things, right? Endurance. He who endures to the end, the same shall be saved. It doesn't say he who endures a little bit and then gets fed up, right? Endure to the end. A righteous man falls 7 times, gets back up, and keeps moving, right? Temptation will always be with you. But how you deal with that temptation will change depending on your maturity and depending on how you cast out some of these illnesses that you have, right? It's not like you go down the street, you see Piggly Wigglies, they offering, they sacrificing pork and all types of monstrosities. You see at Christmas time, the temptation is there, but you've gained a certain level that you tune that out, so it doesn't even affect you. But there's certain things that still affect you that you still have to overcome. So it's not like temptation is going to leave you. That's why it says prepare yourself for temptation, because it's always going to be there. But how you deal with it comes with maturity, right? It comes with moving past and setting those things behind you and now looking forward. Who still in here struggles with pork? Right? They don't even have to think about it, right? You don't have to think about it. But now, if I ask who here struggles with forgiving their brother or sister, right? Continue.
Verse 8. Charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part.
Right? We only see a part of the picture. Right? And I like to use this example, right? Christ had 12 apostles. Peter had a level of faith that he was able to walk out on water until he started to doubt himself. Right? And then you had the flip side of that. You had Thomas, who was like, he was very doubtful. He was like, yo, let me see the holes in your hand. Let me see the holes in your feet so I can believe. Right? So we can never look at a particular brother or sister and say, you know what, they don't have that level of faith. He was still an apostle. Right? We don't understand his part in it because we only prophesy in part. We see in part. So we need to focus on our part in it and stop thinking that we can put ourselves in someone else's shoes and try to measure them according to how we're living. Continue.
Verse 10. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. Verse 11. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things.
Right? So we're all newborns in it. right? These things are new to us, right? So we're children right now. So it's time for us to start to grow up and start to mature and put away these childish things. Because until we can say that all these things are behind us, we're still acting as children. Because we're easily offended. Or we make excuses on when we say we're going to do something and, you kind of don't follow through with it. Right? That's why it says don't make a vow. Because that's recorded. Let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. Anything else is wickedness. Right? So be mindful of what you say, either to your brother or sister, because it's being recorded. Right? That's it on that?
I've got 2 more verses.
Go ahead.
For now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. No, I know in part, but then I shall know even as also I am known. Verse 13. And now abideth faith, hope, charity. These 3, but the greatest of all these is charity.
The greatest of all these is charity. You could be hopeful, right? What was the other one? Go ahead, Al.
That's the last verse.
Read the last verse again.
And now abideth faith,
Faith,
hope, charity.
charity.
These 3, but the greatest of all these is charity.
Right? The greatest of all these is charity, right? Hold that. Let's go to Luke 17. Start at verse 1.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 17, verse 1. Then said he unto the disciples, It is impossible but that offenses will come, but woe unto him through whom they come.
He said, it's impossible, but that offenses will come. Dealing with Israel, right? Right, come on.
Verse 2. It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and he cast into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones. Verse 3. Take heed to yourselves.
Take heed to yourselves, come on.
If any brother trespass against thee,
If your brother trespass against you,
rebuke him.
rebuke him.
And if he repent, forgive him.
Right. So it's giving you a scenario on how to deal with your fellow brothers and sisters, right? If he trespass against you, it doesn't say, we hear that, turn the other cheek, right? If someone does wrong to you, let them know, look, you did wrong to me, brother. I don't like how you handled that. But it doesn't say that, forget about it, go be bitter in the corner somewhere and let that fester and stir up. Because that'll change and it'll turn. Satan will use that. Satan will use that to an occasion and just brings about wickedness, right? Come on.
Verse 4. And if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him.
If he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, it doesn't say 7 times in a year, 7 times in a month, not even 7 times a week. I could deal with 1 offense a day. But 7 times in a day? What does it say?
And if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him.
So if he repents from doing you wrong 7 times a day, and a lot of times it may sound as if, this person is not getting it. But we don't understand, maybe this person is dealing with something. Maybe this person is, in their own way, they're making strides. And by even being able to humble themselves and come to their brother and say, you know what, that's my bad, You know, they may not give you the whole open book scenario on what's actually dealing with them, but eventually you'll get to that. But if you cut that brother off, you lost the brother. That's why it says, woe unto to that person who will cause that offense. Right? So if that person repents, leave that door open. You know what? Sorry. 7 times in a day. Right? Come on.
Verse 5.
And what did the apostles say to that, right?
And the apostles said unto the Lord, increase our faith.
Man. You know how to increase my faith now. That's 7 times a day, huh? Let's hold that. Let's go to Matthew chapter 18. Matthew chapter 18.
This is the book of St. Matthew, chapter 18, verse 1. At the same time came the disciples unto Yeshua, saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?
If they're asking you, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Right? Come on.
And Yeshua called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Now, why did he say this, right? You ever see little children fight? Little children get into an argument or a squabble? You from the outside, you're looking at it and you think it's like, oh man, these two, they're gonna be enemies for life. But 2 minutes later, they're playing again. They reconcile. It went over their head, right? They don't hold that animosity because they're little children, right? But what happens? Right? Go ahead, read that again.
Verse 3. And said, verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Verse 4. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
So whoever shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Now it doesn't mean that we have to think as a child. It's not saying that. But we have to forgive as if we were little children. We have to encounter one another joyfully, willfully, playfully. Right? And not take everything so seriously, because there's bigger things at play. We're all in this walk together, but are we going to nitpick at certain things that each other do? We're a body. I may not like what my foot is doing, but it's still my foot. I still need my foot to walk. Right? Come on.
Verse 5. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. Verse 6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Verse 7. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come, but woe to that man by whom the offense cometh.
Right, so it says, it must need be that offenses will come. Because when we're standing up for the name, right, or even when we're professing Christ in the street, it says to be persecuted for my name's sake. For my name's sake, not for your own, right? Because we're going to offend people that's in darkness. But those 10 people that we offend, we can't cut them off completely because the Father may have a different path for them. He can show them the light at any time. So we can't treat them in a certain way because they haven't seen the light yet. Right? Come on.
Verse 8. Wherefore, if thine hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire.
So if these things are causing offenses, if you are causing offenses, it's better that you chop off those things that cause an offense. So that you can end up in the kingdom maimed, in a wheelchair, anything. It's better to crawl into heaven than be boiling in hell. Because what is the truth? What are we seeking? Are we seeking riches and wealth and vanity on this earth? This earth will be done away with. There will be a new heaven and a new earth. So what are we storing up for? Are we stockpiling offenses, or are we looking to achieve a certain level of charity, a certain level of love, sincerity, so that we can store up those riches in heaven, so that we have an account once this earth passes away? Continue.
Verse 9. And if thine eye offend thee, pluck it out, and cast it from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life with 1 eye, rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hellfire. Verse 10. Take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones.
Take heed that you despise not one of these little ones. Don't despise your brothers and sisters, right? Continue.
For I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father, which is in heaven.
Everything is being recorded. Everything is taken account. Right? Continue.
Verse 11. For the Son of Man is come to save that which was lost.
So what are we seeking, right? It says, seek the lost sheep of the children of Israel, right? That was a commandment. To go out there and preach and seek the lost sheep of the children of Israel. Right, continue.
Verse 12. How think ye, if a man have 100 sheep, and one of them be gone astray, doth he not leave the 99 and go into the mountains and seek it, that which is gone astray?
Because why? Because the heavens rejoice when one sinner is saved. When one sinner is converted. It's not rejoicing over the 99 that's doing the will or doing the work. Why? Because you should have already been doing it to begin with. Because he pre-selected us from birth, from the womb. He already knew us before. So this was already in us to do it. So you don't get credit for doing what you're supposed to do. That's like saying, oh, you know what? I never been to jail. You're not supposed to go to jail. You don't get credit for that. Continue.
Verse 13. And if so be that he find it, verily I say unto you, he rejoiceth more of that sheep than of the 99 which went not astray.
So if we're not looking to the lost sheep, if we're not looking towards those who need that healing, need that help, then we're not doing that work. This is the work that needs to be done right now. This is the will of the Father, that we seek his lost sheep. Christ said, Peter was like, yo, what can I do? Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. My sheep are not eating right now. They're hungry for the word. They're getting all types of strong drink out here. Getting persuaded with this and that. But if we look at them, it's like, oh man, look at this brother following this Islam, bowing to this rock. Are we feeding that sheep? Or we have a certain level of animosity that we can't now gain that brother in the spirit of meekness? Because we've already put our guard up so we can't teach him. Continue.
Verse 14. Even so, it is not the will of your Father which is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish.
It's not the will that these people should perish. It's not the will that any of us should perish. So we can't look at them as like they're less than. Continue.
Verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained a brother.
And it tells you, if your brother offends you, right, go and tell he and thee alone. But a lot of times we don't feel, we may not know that brother personally, or we may not have a particular rapport with him, so to speak. So instead of going to him and him alone, we'll go to another brother that we have a rapport with and kind of, chat it up with him about the situation. But what is that doing? That's now giving that other brother a false sense of how this brother is dealing. Continue.
Verse 16. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more.
So if he will not hear you, then you can get one or two more involved. But see, a lot of us skip that first step. Right? Continue.
That in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. Verse 17. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it to the church.
So now it's even give you a further step, because it's all aimed at redeeming that relationship with your brother. You're not supposed to be at odds with each other. So it's all about redeeming that. It's all about reconciling that. So it's saying, look, go to him first. If that doesn't work, get 2 or more. If that doesn't work, get the church. But the end result should be that you reconcile. Because we're all in it together. Whether these minor differences. Right? Continue.
But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as an heathen man and publican.
But see, now, if he neglects to hear all of that, then the Most High is going to deal with that. But you at least did your due diligence in following that protocol. Right? Let's hold that. Because we're talking about excuses. Right? What was one of the first excuses made on record?
The serpent told me to do it.
Let's get it. Genesis 3. Genesis chapter 3. We'll start at verse 1.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Most High God had made.
Now it says the serpent was more subtle, right? Subtle, very subtle. So you can't, you know how they always say, it's the quiet ones you gotta watch out for, right? Very subtle, right? They'll just slip something in there, right? Because Satan's not gonna be all loud and rambunctious, like, come over here and sin, look at this. Nah, he's like, you didn't know? You know that tree was, you could make some oil out that tree, put it on your face, beautify yourself, you know that? Look at me, I ate like 3-4 of them apples, man. Look at my nails, shining. Right? Continue.
And he said unto the woman, Yea, as the Most High said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden.
Has the Most High said that? See, that's that subtlety, because if he can get you to reason within your own head, he can get you out the mindset of what you're supposed to do. So it's the reasoning part, right? It's the having to now think. When you already know what you're supposed to do in the situation, what you've already been told. So he's like, wait, did he say that? Continue.
Verse 2. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Most High had said, ye shall not eat of it.
Should not eat of it, right? It's like, but then Satan comes in real subtle. It's like, is there really pork in that? I don't know. Let me do a search. Continue.
And of verse 3. Neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Verse 4. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For, verse 5, for the Most High doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened.
Drop down to verse 8.
This is verse 8. And they heard the voice of the Most High walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Most High God.
So he hid themselves from the presence, right? Continue.
Among the trees in the garden. And the Most High God called unto Adam and said unto him, where art thou? Verse 10. And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked.
You probably was still chewing on that fruit. You had to go finish it up real quick in the corner somewhere. Like, I heard you. You know, you just wiped this juice off my chin. All right, continue.
And I hid myself. Verse 11. And he said, Who told thee that thou art naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I command thee that thou shouldest not eat? Verse 12. And the man said, The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree.
Look at that.
And I did eat.
Already pointing fingers, right? That woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit. Why you give me her? Without taking responsibility for his own actions. Right? It's easy to pawn off that responsibility to someone else. But how do we take accountability for our part in it? Right? Continue.
And the Most High God said unto the woman, What is it that thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat.
It's the serpent's fault, man. He tricked me. Right? Again, pawning off that responsibility. Instead of just, humbly saying, look, I messed up. I messed up. Right? Let's hold that. Let's go to Luke 14. Start at verse 8.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 14, verse 8. When thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honorable man than thou be bidden of him.
So when you're bidden, that means when you're called, right? So when you're called to a wedding, sit not in the highest seat, but sit in the lowest seat. Humble yourself. Because we've all been called. Don't think because you've been called that you're now entitled to a higher position. No, humble yourself, sit down in the lowest seat. Right? Continue.
Verse 9. And him that bade thee, and him come and say to thee, Give this man place, and thou begin with shame to take the lowest room. Verse 10. But when thou art bidden, go and sit down in the lowest room, that when he that bade thee cometh, he may say unto thee, Friend, go up higher. Then shalt thou have worship in the presence of them that sit at meat with thee.
Right? So when you're, let someone else give you that glory for your work. Don't think highly of your work that you're doing, because you don't know what you're doing, if you're doing it in sincerity or not. The Most High truly knows our heart. He sees right through us. He sees us like no other person sees us. Right? So even we even fool ourselves, because the heart is desperately wicked. Who could know it? You could think that you're doing it out of the kindness of your heart, but it could be a teensy peachy little type of just, oh man, I hope I'm making it to the king. We all hope, we all got faith, but without charity, right? Continue.
Verse 11. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Verse 12. Then said he also to him that bade him, when thou makest a dinner or supper, call not thy friends, nor thy brethren, neither thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbors, lest they also bid thee again, and recompense be made thee.
So when you make a dinner, don't call the people you know. Right? What profit is it in calling all the people you know? You've seen them already. You fed them already. They probably can have the means of feeding themselves, right? But what does it say? Continue.
Verse 13. But when thou makest a feast, call the poor,
Call the poor,
the maimed,
the maimed,
the lame,
the lame,
the blind.
the blind, right? Continue.
Verse 14. And thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee. For thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just.
So if you're just doing it just to get something in return for it, you have to look at that. Don't do it because you know, oh, I'm gonna get this brother or sister up because I know, they get the income tax next week. They're gonna bless me back. Do it out of the kindness, because do it out of that charity, right? But it says feed the poor. Do it to the main, because they can't pay you back. They're not gonna get a recompense, right? Continue.
Verse 15. And when one of them that sat at meat with him heard these things, he said unto him, Blessed is he that shall eat bread in the kingdom of the Most High. 16. Then said he unto him, A certain man made a great supper and bade many.
Right, so a certain man made a great supper and bade many, right? Let's pay attention to this. Continue.
And sent his servant at supper time to say unto them that were bidden, Come, for all things are now ready.
So if we're looking at in the context of who's that certain man made a great supper?
Yeshaya.
So if that's Yeshaya, then who's the servant that he sent to say to them, come?
Ahaya is made the supper.
Right, so a certain man made a great supper and bade many, right? A certain man made a great supper, Most High made a great supper and called many, right? And sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were called, come, for all things are now ready. Right? Continue.
And they all with one consent began to make excuses.
They all with one consent made to make excuses. Right? Continue.
The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs to go and see it. I pray thee, have me excused.
Look, man, I just bought this land. I'm about to build this house. Just give me 3 more years. I'll be ready. 3 more years. Right? Continue.
Verse 19. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. I pray thee, have me excused. Verse 20. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. 21. So that servant came and shewed his lord these things. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to the servant, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in hither the poor and the maimed and the halt and the blind.
So they don't want it. The ones that I called don't want it. Go out to the streets and offer it to everybody else. Right? Because this food needs to get eaten. It can't just sit here cold. Right? Continue.
Verse 22. And the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there's room.
So it is done, but yet there's still room. All right, continue.
Verse 23. And the Lord said unto the servant, Go out into the highways and the hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. Verse 24. For I say unto you, that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper.
Come on.
25. And there went great multitudes with him. And he turned and said unto them, If any man come to me, and hate not his father, and mother, and wife, and children, and brethren, and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple.
So we broke this down before, right? So that hate is love them more than the Most High, or love them more than what the purpose of you being here. Because anything can be an idol, right? Anything can be an idol. Idol is something that you hold above or hold high esteem for. So anything that's vaulted above the Most High says, look, what did we read in the law about the idols? Make not any graven image, something to worship. Don't put that in front of me. Right? So if we love something more than the Most High, then that's an idol. Continue.
Verse 27. And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple.
So whoever doesn't bear his cross and come after me, following that same path, who was Christ with? Who did he come for? What was his purpose? Right? What was his purpose? Let's hold that real quick. Go to Romans 10, Romans chapter 10. Start at verse 1.
Verse 1.
Yep.
This is the book of Romans chapter 10 verse 1. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to the Most High of Israel is that they might be saved.
Right.
For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge.
See how people, we have just a natural zeal and natural pull towards the Most High. But now all the time we understand what it takes to be a disciple, or what it takes to be a follower. We don't understand, or we've been, duped in a certain respect as to what we need to do to follow his law. Because we hear that, the law is done away with. That's something that's heavily perpetuated in the Christian church, that the law is done away with. Right? And a lot of times they don't understand that the law is done away with, then what is grace? Right? But grace is not an excuse to sin. Right? So we have to understand that what we reap, or what we sow, we're going to reap. So it's just a matter of we're not getting the death for it right off the hand. This is why it says, put away those childish things. Move forward. Repent and go towards something different. Right? Continue.
Verse 3. For they've been ignorant of God's righteousness.
Being ignorant of the Most High's righteousness, right?
And going about to establish their own righteousness.
Going about to establish your own righteousness.
Have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of the Most High.
They haven't humbled themselves. They haven't submitted to that power. Because they still feel that they have, or they have control of the situation. Right? Continue.
Verse 4. For Christ is the end of the law. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth.
Now that word "and" there, when you look it up in the Strong's, you got the Strong's over there?
No, brother.
Because that verse can be easily misconstrued as to mean that, look, see, we don't have to follow the law. Christ is the end of the law, right? But it's not saying that. So when you look up these Strongs, it's G505, and the word is telos. And when you look in the definitions, right? It says, the last and ending succession or series, eternal, that which a thing is finished, is closed issue, the end of which all things, told, custom, purpose, the aim, purpose. So Christ is the purpose of the law. He's the aim of the law, because what did he bring about? He brought about the forgiveness of sins, and to love your brother as, to love the Most High and to love your brother, right? So the purpose of the law is that you instill that charity and you love the Most High and you love your brother. Those are the two great, but everything else hangs on those. So Christ is the purpose of the law. So whenever we go to have, or whatever we have a disagreement with our brother, the purpose is the reconciliation. The purpose is Christ. Go back to matter of fact, let's go to 2 Peter chapter 2. Let's see what's there.
What chapter?
Chapter 3. Start at verse 9.
This is the book of 2 Peter, chapter 3, verse 9.
Because we were all given a promise, right? When you look into the promises, a promise was made. And the Most High is not, that's one thing that you can count with a surety. That when the Most High says something, his word cannot come back void. And this is why Abraham was so dead set on sacrificing his only son, because he had a level of faith that he knew that that life came from the Most High. That life came from the Most High. So he understood that the Most High can raise it back up again if it was his will. Go ahead.
This is the book of 2 Peter, chapter 3, verse 9. The Most High is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish.
So he is long-suffering towards us, not willing that any of us should perish. If the Most High was to bring judgment right now, that's why I'm grateful that I still have time to get it right. I don't fear death, I fear the judgment. Because there's still time that I need to set certain things right. So if that judgment was to come now, there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Continue.
But that all should come to repentance. Verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burnt up.
So we understand that all of these things are going to perish on this earth. So what's the excuse that you got a piece of land or you got some business investments? How is that excusing you from doing the work? Because all these things are going to be burned up. Don't count the Most High's word as slackness. Right? Continue.
Verse 11. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved.
So seeing that all these things will be dissolved, right?
What manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness?
What manner of person will you be? When that day of judgment comes, what state will you be in at that very moment, at that very instant? What manner of person shall you be? Because you can be righteous your whole day. You start sinning in that last hour, guess what? And what's the flip side to that? You were sinning your whole time, right? In that last hour you repent, guess what? Now is that the only way? No, but it's written, right? Only the Father knows the intricacies of the judgment. But that part is written. Right? Continue.
Verse 12. Looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Most High, where the heavens, being on fire, shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Verse 13. Nevertheless, we, according to the promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness.
So we're looking for this new heaven and new earth, right? Continue.
Verse 14. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye may not be found of him in peace without spot. That ye may be found of him in peace without spot and blameless.
So be found in him in peace without spot and blameless. No one can say something negative about you. Without spot, blameless. At least on your end. Because you did what the scripture says to go about and reconcile. Right? Continue.
Verse 15. And account that the long suffering of our Lord is salvation, even as our beloved brother Paul also, according to the wisdom given unto him, hath written unto you. Verse 16. And also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things erred to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable rest, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction.
Hold that. Let's go to Jeremiah 1.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Start at verse 4.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 4.
And see, one of the things we can never do, now being in this light, we can never doubt our purpose in this walk. Because we may question, we may say to ourselves, you know, I'm not good enough for this. But why did he choose me? But the Most High sees you like no one else sees you. Right? Continue.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 4. Then the word of the Most High came unto me, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee.
Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. Right? Come on.
And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations.
Right? Come on.
Verse 6. Then said I, Ah, Most High God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child.
Now, he just said, look, before I knew thee, before you came out the belly, I knew you. I sanctified you. And this brother said, look, I can't speak, for I'm a child. Right? Continue.
Verse 7. But the Most High said unto me, Say not, I'm a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak. Verse 8. Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with thee to deliver thee, saith the Most High.
So we cannot doubt. He was doubting that the Most High was with him. Look, it's not coming from you. I am with you. I'm bringing this about. So there's no need to doubt yourself. Don't doubt your place or why you're in this walk. Let the Most High work through you. And let him fulfill that destiny that was from the womb. Because he sanctified you from the womb. He knew your path, but a lot of us is fighting it. A lot of us don't want to humble ourselves. A lot of us want to make excuses as to, we got other things that we got to do. But what is the whole duty of man? Let's get it. Let's get it. Ecclesiastes in the Bible, chapter 12.
This is a book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13. For let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
No. It's only half the duty of man.
For this is the whole duty of man.
Now, he only has to do that on the Shabbat.
For this is the whole duty of man.
This is the whole duty of man. To fear the Most High and keep his commandments. Right? Come on.
Verse 14. For the Most High shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
Every secret thing. Don't think that we're getting away with stuff. Don't think that we're not seeing. Yes, we can be working on ourselves, but it's time that we put those childish things away, because the work that needs to be done, let the Most High fulfill that. We're concerned about, when is the end gonna come? When do we have to flee? Are you right? Are you ready to meet that judgment right now? That's the question you should be asking, instead of when are we gonna flee? Because you'll be swallowed up in that earth just like our forefathers, if you're not right within yourself. So the time that we have now is the time to move past those things that we've been struggling with. Is to leave those things in dust. Because how else are we going to move on to perfection? Let's get a couple more verses. Let's get Matthew 5 and 37. Actually, start at 38.
38.
Yeah, Matthew 5 and 38.
This is a book of St. Matthew, chapter 5, verse 38. You have heard it, you have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. 39. But I say unto you, that you resist not evil, that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also.
Right, so this is that famous thing, like turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek. A lot of times we tend to make bigger issues out of the smallest things just because we feel offended or we feel as if that person shouldn't have did that. Right, so we'll easily catch offense over something so minute that will turn it and turn into something catastrophic. We resist not evil. We're too easily letting evil in. That door is wide open. It's like he got his foot in, now it's half of his body in. We resisted not evil. It's easy to get offended. And it's impossible that offenses will come. But again, if we now have that spirit of meekness that we've been working on, that we've been enduring with our brothers and sisters, we came, we tried to talk it out. We had a certain, level of discussion that didn't work. We went according to the scriptures, but it's all into that reconciliation factor, right? We have to resist that evil because that temptation will come in, right? Continue.
Verse 40. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also.
If any man sue you and take away your coat, let him have your cloak also. These things are material. Otherwise, what's going to happen? He's going to make up something about you, and turn you over to the judge, and then your life is in, behind bars. Right? That's why it says, agree with your adversary quickly before he deliver you to the judge. Like, hey, take my cloak, go ahead, take that. Take that cloak too. Now, it's not saying that you shouldn't defend yourself if he's threatening you or your family. It's not saying that we're just to lie down and let these things come about us. It's not saying that. But again, a lot of these things are little minor instances that we blow up out of proportion. Like, oh man, you shorted me 25 cents. Give you $1, you're supposed to give me my change back. The flip side of that, when they give you too much change back, are you quick to give them that money back? Right? But see, that's Satan right there talking about, oh no, your brother, you blessed. Just not that. You needed that. You need that extra little something. You're even doing the work. Take a little something. Right? But you already know what's the right thing to do in that situation. Right? All right, continue.
Verse 40. Verse 41. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. 42. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away.
Right, continue.
Verse 43. You have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies.
Love your enemies, right?
Bless them that curse you.
Bless them that curse you.
Do good to them that hate you.
Good to them that hate you.
And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you.
Pray for them. What did Christ do when he was on the cross? Pray for them, Father. They know not what they do. And this was a man that was being put to death for our sins. But you can't endure a little persecution? He said, if you can't take up my cross and bear it, look, there are bigger things at play. Continue.
Verse 45. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh the sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. Verse 46. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same?
if you just love people that love you, what's the profit in that? Well, who are you reaching with that? Yeah, of course they're going to love you back. You love them. It's nothing difficult about that. Continue.
Verse 47. And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so?
Right? If you only saluting your brothers and sisters that you know, and you're not even interacting with these people that's out in the world, right? I understand, be ye separate. But we also have to seek the lost sheep. And we can't struggle or strive in genealogies. The sand is deep. Israel's like the sand of the sea. There's a lot of sand out there. But if we're not interacting with our brothers and sisters in that we see that are in darkness, then we're not doing our due diligence. We're not trying to bring that one soul back so that the heavens can rejoice over that. Continue.
Verse 48 and last. Be ye therefore perfect, as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
Let's give the Most High a hand. All praises, all praises. Questions?
You always got a question.
Questions, sis?
Yes, I gotta get my notes. In Luke 17, right? I gotta pull it out. Let's see, what verse was that again? Oh, verse 3 through 5. When it says, verse 3, take heed to yourselves, if thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him. And it says, and if he repent, forgive him.
Right.
So if someone trespass against you and they don't repent,
Right.
you know, do we still have to forgive them?
Right. I mean,
Because that was one like that if, like.
right. So even if he doesn't repent, you still can't hold any type of variance in your heart towards that person. But at the same token, it gives you a breakdown on how to pursue that, right? The end goal is the reconciliation of that brother. So that forgiveness is now, you know, you guys are still chummy, right? There's some instances where things happen and we'll never speak to another individual again, right? We may have the forgiveness in our heart, but we won't have the interaction. But the main point, if you have a brother, like you've been dealing, you've been walking, you've been working, and now you have a falling out, the ideal is that reconciliation of that brother, so that, you know, whatever happened is put in the past and you're like little children again, doing the work again, right? But again, it gives you that breakdown on what to do in those instances. You know, first go to him, if not, 2 or more witnesses, if not, church, if not, then it's that. But the end goal is that reconciliation.
So, where it says in the Old Testament, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy, was that because there were so many wars?
What's scripture and verse?
It was what we just read in 5 and 43. When Christ was speaking. So he says, ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy.
Right.
In the Old Testament, it's because of all the wars.
Right. So there was a lot of tension between the other nations, right? And this is why there were so many, when it says, you know, not to abhor an Edomite, right? There was a lot of tension between that land, between the Israelites and the Edomites in that landmass. So now he understood that we would now dwell in the land. So if we have any type of hatred or variance in our heart, right, how are we going to prosper in that land when we're surrounded or recovered, right? But yeah, there was a lot of wars. There was a lot of indifference in Israel. But he said, we carried that. It became more of a tradition, not to dwell with those that are against us, right? But there's a greatness, there's a greater level in heaven that we can achieve to, right?
And to answer the question that the sister brought up about should we forgive even if they didn't ask for forgiveness, or what was it? Shall we forgive even
if they didn't
repent?
Yeah.
The Lord's prayer says, forgive us of our sins as we
Absolutely.
forgive those that sin against us. So it's it's part of it. We gotta still forgive them for ourselves. Or else the Most High is not gonna forgive us of our sins.
Absolutely. You're straight on that. This is biconditional. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those that sin against us, right? Wow. Any more questions?
My question is on clarification when it says if any man sue you at the law. Did they have like a system like how we I'm gonna sue you? Was it like that?
Right. So it was like a court system, right? So it's saying that a lot of these instances, because the law was given so that we can govern ourselves, so there was no need to seek any type of outside legislation, right? We're supposed to, and that's why we have the tools to squash anything between ourselves, right? So that's what it says when your adversary, because this is someone that's against you, disagree with him quickly, or else he'll bring you in front of that court system, and then you're thrust in bounds, right? Any more questions?
Excellent lesson. All praise to the Lord.
Who is here for the first time? That's everybody, right?
About back for the first time.
Now, all praise.
God,
I
welcome
just
back,
want to say
welcome
that it's truly a blessing that we have this space, and as as I look out, we're definitely going to outgrow it very, very soon. So we're gonna
right.
But just all praises go to the Most High and Christ for just allowing us to have this place to congregate and to come together as a body. It's been such a long time. I remember a lot of familiar faces from the Albany congregation. But it was very needed, and one of the reasons that we're in Oneida is because it's central to a lot of the other locations. Right? We have Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Albany, and it's not a strain on any one individual. Right? We also got Binghamton, Ithaca. So just all praises and thank you guys for just making it out safely and coming up to worship and congregate. Forsake not the assembly, and let's come together as one and become a body strong in this truth. Because at the end of the day, this is what the walk is about, right? Bearing each other's burdens, right? Confessing our faults, because none of us in here are perfect, but we're striving for that perfection. We're looking to perfect ourselves in the walk, and that's what the church is for the perfecting of the saints, right? So let's not have or hold any type of variance in our heart as we're seeking perfection. Right? All praises, all praises. One second while we get the praise and worship segment started before we pray out. Let's see what we're gonna play for the people. I'll try not to play something with some crazy things going on in it.
Who told you I sang? Who told you miracles when it's only Sunday?
No. Yes.
Everybody say yes. Yes.
You say?
I heard you say.
You do a little jingle.
She wants to quiet down.
Nah, but this is
Everybody say
yes. Like, even because I'm not a talented singer.
Not a soloist.
You are a talented singer.
You want to bust it out? Ready? I'm gonna start. Y'all gonna hop on?
Yep, let's go.
1, 2, 3. Sing unto the
Lord a new song, and let His praises fill the temple. For
and the Lord of Lords bow down before him. Come on and sing unto the Lord a new song, and let his praises fill the temple. For he is the King of kings and the Lord of lords. Bow down before him. Praise up higher. Lift up his name. Praise up higher. He forever reigns. Sing unto the Lord a new song, and let his praises fill the temple. For he is the King of kings and the Lord of lords. Bow down before him. Praise unto the Lord a new song, and let his praises fill the temple. For he is the King of kings and the Lord of lords. Bow down before him. Praise up higher. Lift up his name. Praise up higher. He forever. Praise the Most High.
When I was out in Rochester a couple of weeks ago, right, they inspired me, right, because they was out there jamming. So we're going to jam out like they jammed out in Rochester.
All praise to the Most High.
God.
Here we go. Hold on.
He's alive. Forever he shall reign. He's alive. They crucified him on Calvary, and he rose in victory. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive. All power in his name. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive. All power in his name. The Lamb that was slain. He's alive. Forever he shall reign. He's alive. They crucified him on Calvary.
All praises to the Most High. His soul and earth. Can't be too cool to praise the Most High.
No, not at all. God.
Second, the Lord is my shepherd. Go ahead, brother. You hold it. Anybody, like the Lord.
Seeking the kingdom right here. This is kingdom music. We're gonna burn that fire. Let's remain standing so we can pray out. Before we pray, let's remember those that are sick. Let's remember those that are hurting, those that are in need of healing. And let's ask the Lord to send his anointing angels to minister to those that are in need. Think of those in your family that you are shedding light to. Think of ways that you can help someone that's in need. Think of that homeless person that may just need a conversation to remind them that they're still a human. Take time out of your day to speak to someone that no one else speaks to. Take time to show this world that there's still love in it. Because if this salt has lost its savor, then what is it good for? We are the salt of the world. So let's season it with charity. Let's season it with love. Let's season it with faith. Because this world has lost faith in itself. So we have to remind them that they have a place that they can come. That they don't have to let those burdens weigh them down. That their sins can be forgiven and they can be how they truly was intended to be. Just take the time out to think to yourself and to thank the Father for allowing you breath in your lungs and another opportunity to get it right. Tomorrow's not promised, so today we have to make sure we do everything in our possibility today to make it into the kingdom. If we were just judged on today, would we be happy with ourselves? If you only had the rest of the day, would you be able to have a good report? All the grievances that you had, because it puts it into perspective. Let's focus on the things that are important in this life. And that's the love of the brethren, the love of the sisterhood, and serving the Most High with all our everything, fearing the Most High and following His commandments, being the priests and the princesses and the kings and the queens that this land deserves. We owe it to ourselves to allow Him to work within us and allow Him to bring us to a new level of perfection. Allow Him to wash you and make you clean and renew in you a clean heart, so that you, without any malice, can go on and bring His sheep back to His fold. Let's love one another. Let's lift each other up. Let's not cast each other down with hateful speech. Let's always be looking toward the prize and that high calling. Hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be done.
On earth. As it is in heaven.
As it is in heaven.
Give us this day.
Give us this day.
Our daily bread.
Our daily bread.
Forgive us our debts.
And forgive us our debts.
As we forgive our debtors.
As we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not.
And lead us not.
Into temptation.
Into temptation.
But deliver us.
But deliver us.
From all evil.
From all evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
For thine is the kingdom.
The power.
The power.
And the glory.
And the glory.
Forever.
Forever.
And ever.
And ever.
Amen.
Amen.
Shemai.
Shemai.
Yasha'Allah.
Yasha'Allah.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Alahaya na.
Alahaya na.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Akkad.
Akkad.
Shemai.
Shemai.
Yasha'Allah.
Yasha'Allah.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Alahaya na.
Alahaya na.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Akkad.
Akkad.
Shemai.
Shemai.
Yasha'Allah.
Yasha'Allah.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Alahaya na.
Alahaya na.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Akkad.
Akkad.
Hear, O Israel.
Hear, O Israel.
The Lord our God.
The Lord our God.
Ahaya.
Ahaya.
Is one.
Is one.
Amen.
Amen.
You guys can talk, we can fellowship.
We doing announcements?
My Yasha'Allah, Ahaya, Alahaya Nawa, Ohaya, Okai, Shemai, Yasha'Allah, Ahaya, Alahaya Nawa, Ahaya, Shemai, Yasha'Allah, Ahaya, Alahaya Nawa, Ahaya,
Let's put some music going, let's fellowship. We have some drinks over there, some refreshments. Right? Meet someone that you've never met before. Speak to someone you never spoke to before. Right? Don't leave this building without at least making another connection or a new connection. Alright? All praise. Let's get that music going.
We on the list for downstairs.
This song got
Are we gonna go with what we want to do, like our talent and stuff, because if we get her 1 o'clock, we should be able to have choir person. That's it. Look, I got here at 2, right?
How do y'all feel with this being on purpose?